cascade of logical conclusions that follow from that about the nature of the universe, about the degree of choice that human beings have over how to structure their society and things like that.
Well, many people make lifetime sacrifices, which may have not pay off in the end. All right. Well, just to move on along, and you did have a very large audience to that event. How was the event publicized?
We made a flyer.
You made a flyer, and how was that distributed?
That was distributed to all major universities, specifically UNO, of course. There was a lot of NOSHA people there, so our NOSHA Google groups, word of mouth. I'm sure the Baptist Theological Ministries helped out and invited a lot of people. So, yeah, we were very impressed with the audience.
Ordinarily, around the country, when there's, sometimes it's called a debate, but when there are the two sides, the audience is packed with the theists. That was not the case at UNO. So how do you evaluate that audience and how, where they came from and how they responded? What do you think about the audience you got?
I thought it was a great audience. First of all, there was a very well-behaved audience. There was no bitter acrimony. There were questions from theists. There were questions from non-theists. They were, meaty questions. They gave us all, on both sides, a chance to delve into the issues and talk about them. They were informed questions.
Yes, and I didn't hear a single amen coming from for either side, All right, well, other than evaluating the audience, in general, how do you evaluate the presentations of your side and the other side? Did you think what did you think of it?
For the first time, I think it was good. It could have been a little bit more fluid, more flowing. We could have been more organized, but I think for the first presentation, I think it went absolutely superbly well.
Doug actually recorded the audio, and I've listened to it. And going back, I spoke way too fast. I was worried I had a lot to talk about, and since I was on the tail end, I wasn't sure how much time I had left. So I spoke very fast. So I guess my evaluation of my own presentation was speak slower next time.
All right. Well, you've slowed down a little for today, too.
I think so, yes, sir.
Well, that's good.
No, time limit.
Well, what did you... go ahead.
I think it went... I would agree with Doug. It went very well for first effort. One change I would suggest the next time around would be that we don't do the questions between the panels. I think we were a little bit too in between in structure. Either it should be very free-form kind of back and forth between the panels, or what I would like to do with this kind of thing is instead of the section at the end where we question between the panels, we would just have a rebuttal for each side and then let the audience do the questions.
Yes.
I don't think either the panelists or the audience gained much out of the questions back and forth between the panels because it was very constrained in what it could address.
And unfortunately, there was not a lot of time for the questions from the audience. There were people there who still had their hands raised when time ran out. And so I suspect when another one of these events takes place, you're going to be sure that there's adequate time for the audience to ask questions.
I actually stayed, I'm not sure how long, maybe 30, 45 minutes, but I had a couple of audience members come after the discussion and ask me some questions. So I think there wasn't enough time for audience questions.
But it was very interesting that after the formal meeting adjourned, lots of people came up front to talk to the presenters on both sides, which was nice. Very interesting that they were that much concerned. And if, in fact, many of those were UNO students, it gives us cause for optimism about the future, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think so, yes, sir.
All right. Well, listen, there was something that from your side, reasons not to believe, and I don't know, you may have each had a good reason for not bringing it up, but something that I use when I'm asked, why do you say there is no God, is the matter of burden of proof. Now, here's what I get for what burden of proof means. It says, burden of proof means that someone suggesting a new theory or stating a claim must provide evidence to support it. It is not sufficient to say, you cannot disprove this. When anyone is making a bold claim, and especially a positive claim, it's not someone else's responsibility to disprove the claim, but is rather the responsibility of the person who is making the bold claim to prove it. Now, I use that when someone says, well, how can you be so sure? And I say, I don't have to disprove it. Is there a reason why none of the three of you chose to use that in your arguments?
Personally, well, I think we're all operating under severe time constraints, of course, in this kind of venue, so you have to be very picky. I think we all emphasize the parts that have the most personal appeal. I like that discussion. I think it's very important to emphasize that people making extraordinary claims have to provide extraordinary evidence. It's kind of philosophical. I think maybe I was making some assumptions certainly about the audience and the venue and going for things with a little more punch to them than that, although I think it's perfectly logical and correct.
Well, when someone asks me, why don't you believe in God, I say for the same reason I don't believe in Santa Claus.
Or Zeus, or...
That is a good point, and I've actually thought about including that in my presentation, but I guess since the theists were giving reasons to believe in God, I thought it'd be it would fall short because I'm saying the burden proof is on them, and then they go and they provide the proof. So I guess I wanted to my topic to be a little more forceful, I guess.
Well, all right. I was not being critical. I just
wondered why
I didn't.
And that's why I didn't bring it up. Yes, sir.
For me, the theistic response usually to that question is, I just know there's a God. I just know there's a God. Just like I know I love my wife and I know I love
my
kid.
That does not constitute proof.
No, it does not.
But my whole presentation, because I'm very interested in the psychology of belief, and as I was going on about a lot about normal cognitive mechanisms of the way the human mind works. And there is lots of evidence that the human mind is structured to be able to be attacked or hijacked by religious belief. So when someone says, I know there's a God, I know there's a God.
Because there's a place in his brain that tells him that. Yeah. And you feel like that this is congenital, you're born with that place in your brain?
I think, it's every human culture in the world has some supernatural belief of some sort. So, that is the truth.
I don't think we have like a God gene, as some people have talked about, or a tendency to believe in God, but we have many psychological tendencies that are part of the physical package that kind of push us in that direction. We anthropomorphize things that aren't even alive, let alone human, and that's just a natural human tendency. We see faces in the clouds. We see the man on the moon.
Yeah. We see design and purpose.
We see patterns where patterns don't exist.
But so then why do we non-theists do not respond to those same kinds of things that the theists do?
Oh, I think we do. We just respond a little bit differently, and
we explain them differently.
The antidote to those is science, critical thinking, education, common sense.
I think once you understand where the origin of these ideas come from, we see that they're not. I guess I'm missing the word. Yeah, I guess once you understand the origin of where these feelings come from, we see why we feel them. And it's not because they're true, it's just because that's how we're designed.
We're able to step back and look at the whole, the whole picture.
And I suspect the continuing research into how the brain works will give us even greater explanations as to why people wind up with this conviction of a supernatural.
I'm very interested to see where neurology goes within the next few decades. I think it's going to be very amazing.
And we have a leading.
Listen, you will learn in the next few decades, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to. Well, listen, we have a little bit of time left, and I was just wondering from either of you what you might have seen as the highlights of the event.
For me, it was the audience, the participation. As I said, I'm a very evangelistic atheist. I think it's okay to tell people what I believe, just as any theist thinks it's okay to tell people what they believe. And when the audience was so big, I knew that just standing up and saying, "Hi, I'm an atheist," that was enough.
And nobody even threw tomatoes.
Yeah, no one. I wasn't tortured or burnt at the stake or anything. Which is,
well, did either of you see anything? Either in the presentations that someone made. What else would you